Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network, folks. Today we got a great show for you. Let's talk about the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. We'll talk about the implications, the impact we have. We're going to be joined by Professor Najari Mathis Rutledge, who is a law professor and a columnist, to give us some insight as to what we can expect over the next few months as we prepare to have Judge Jackson sitting on the seat at the Supreme Court. We'll have that conversation. Also, let's talk about the idea of party loyalty. Mitch McConnell said some wild things, and all in the respect of wanting to support the party. But when is there a line drawn between party loyalty and country interest? We have that conversation. And folks, it came out just a few moments ago that Will Smith has officially been banned for 10 years from Academy events and Academy activities. What does this mean? We'll have a conversation about that. And I got a very special guest. Speaking of the Oscars, we're going to be talking to the conductor of the 94th Oscar, Mr. Dante Winslow. We're going to have that special conversation. So we got a lot to get to. Stay with us. It's all about to happen on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome. We got a lot to get to, so let's jump right into it. I'm excited because today we know that folks are still celebrating the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson being confirmed for the Supreme Court of the United States. And today there was a special ceremony that was held at the White House, hosted by President Biden himself, for the new Supreme Court justice, and we want to play a little bit of what was said and some of the give you an experience of what was done at that celebration. But we also are joined by Professor Najari Mathis Rutledge, who is a law professor and she's a columnist for USA Today. She's going to give us her insight about what we are seeing and what we can expect over the next few months. And then we'll also be joined by Culture Crew member, activist, and educator Shaquare McKenzie. So I want to play for you very quickly. Let me do this. Let's bring in our very special guest, Professor Najari Mathis Rutledge, first to thank her. And I know she's like super, super excited that her sister has just been confirmed. Professor, it's always a pleasure to talk to you once again. Welcome back to the show. How are you feeling right now, Professor? Because I'm sure that you probably haven't had sleep over the past 24 hours.
Full. I am so full of emotion, even though we knew we had the votes and even though we knew we were going to have some bipartisanship support. When I heard the vice president say the count and said that this nomination is confirmed, tears just flew. I was just so overwhelmed, and I found myself having just crying bursts. I'm so filled with pride and joy, and I cannot believe someone I went to law school with is the next Supreme Court justice. That is just mind-boggling to me. So I'm just happy. I'm happy for little Black girls everywhere. I'm happy for the community. I'm happy for our nation. This is just a wonderful historic moment.
This is a big, big moment on so many levels, Professor. And I know a lot of people are talking about everything from breaking the glass ceiling. I saw a meme or somebody posted a message on Instagram and says, I feel so sorry for the glass ceiling today. So I saw, I see that. I see a lot of, thought pieces about, Black women judges. I went on Twitter as well, and they talked about another Black judge that was that was appointed to a federal court back in 2003, I believe it was. I think it's Judge Janice Rogers, if I'm not mistaken. And people thought she was going to be not that she was nominated for the Supreme Court, but there was a lot of like misinformation about that. But people are just now showing some great interest in Black women judges. And I know that by you being a law professor, that's good for the profession. But I'm wondering, how do we make sure that that conversation stays in a place where people have realistic expectations, that we temper the expectations to the point where we're not expecting to see Justice Jackson come in there and just completely like upend the whole, judicial system. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So the truth is, we have a conservative supermajority that's not going anywhere. And Judge Jackson, who will soon be Justice Jackson, will be replacing Justice Stephen Breyer for the next Supreme Court term. And so since we're exchanging someone who is more progressive with someone who we expect to be equally progressive. And so that balance of the court is just not going to change. We expect that she's going to write some brilliant dissenting opinions. We expect that having her in the room as a Black female has value. And we expect her to do the consensus building that she's always done. But to expect everything to change is not realistic. What we really need to think about is the pipeline, right? Making sure that this moment encourages more people of color to think about law school. Making sure it encourages people in law school to think about judicial clerkships, and making sure it encourages young attorneys to think about the road to getting on the bench. Because one of the reasons this didn't go well when President Obama was president and he tried, and we really wanted a Black woman on the Supreme Court then, there were very few of us in the pipeline. Because traditionally, you have to be an appellate court judge. So that'd be a federal circuit court judge. And we have just a few federal district court judges. Thanks to elections, because elections matter, I hope people realize that, Joe Biden has put more Black women in the court than I think we have ever had, including with President Obama. I think we have 8 to 10 new federal circuit court judges thanks to Joe Biden pushing those judges through. So now we already have some people in the pipeline who were never there before. And that is momentous. I think the whole discussion about diversity in the bench is really important, because now hopefully the world knows that the bench of talent is deep. It doesn't just start or end with Judge Jackson. She should not have been the first. She should have been the second or third. We've always had a wide range of talent with Black judges. They just needed the opportunity, and we need to encourage our youth behind us to think about the Supreme Court and the Circuit Court and the District Court from now
on. Professor, I saw that there was also not really pushback. I think a lot of people are happy about this historic moment, but I know that there are some people who are saying, okay, why are we getting excited about this? And I know that, like, for example, the paper that you write for USA Today, they put out a piece to talk about that level of diversity. I mean, even though you may not agree with the politics of the 2 Black people that are going to be on the bench, but you have Clarence Thomas and Justice Jackson that will be joining him. Then you also have, let's take into consideration, you got 4 women that will also be represented in the Supreme Court. But some people still are looking at this moment and are saying, okay, looking at, how is this going to, impact my life? Can you speak about, when we look at these big appointments and this type of role, how does this trickle down to the citizens on a local or state level?
Well, I think that the problem is apathy, because we're living in times where people are, just like you indicated, very self-centered. And so it's really just like everyone who cares and realizes the value needed to contact their senators. Everyone now needs to make sure we fight against misinformation and we talk about why this matters. Now, there's some people in the population that will never care why it matters, right? They didn't want her in the first place. They don't care. They're just going about their lives.
Right.
But for those of us who understand the significance, and the significance is profound because representation matters. The significance is profound, just like it was when we had Judge Constance Baker Motley. The thousands and thousands of Black women that you talk to today that say, I became a lawyer because of her, matters. The fact that now Justice Jackson can say, oh, I look back to Constance Baker Motley, that is huge. So just think about all the people who are going to look to her today, whether they're young Black girls or young working mothers or what have you. This is also American story of success. Someone who has been told, you know what, don't set your sights too high. Regardless of your race, we've all had that moment. We have all had the naysayer moment where someone told us that what we wanted to achieve was above us. And she did it anyway. She didn't listen to them. And she achieved the dream by working really, really hard and making some really good decisions in her life. That should be celebrated by all of us. And the fact that it's not is really sad and a really telling story about where we are in the country today.
I would have to agree. I feel like, we are unfortunately in this cultural space where even though Black people are still making historic first in some areas, such as this one, that it still doesn't really get people as excited that, as you would expect it. Right. And I found it to be interesting. And I'm saying not just men or Black people, I'm saying women, like, okay, you know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, so what excites you? like what really gets your fire going, considering like we're living in a country where all this other stuff is happening, and we're not excited about the small victories. And I think that, like you said, it's very telling. And I think that that's part of the reason why we haven't made the type of gains, not because we can't, but because of the attitude around it. And that we don't celebrate the victories when they do happen. Right.
Absolutely.
And I've learned that in organizing, that you have to take time to celebrate your small wins or the big wins, or take the time to celebrate any level of victory, because you're like, okay, let's take this moment to pause and reflect. Let's regroup ourselves and get ready for the next battle. And I think that this is one of those moments, like, okay, we can celebrate, but we're regrouping ourselves and getting ourselves ready for the next battle. I want to play, Professor, just some of the words from Justice Judge Jackson as she spoke at the White House today for the special ceremony. Check this out, folks.
In 232 years and 115 prior appointments, for a Black woman to be selected to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States. But we've made it. We've made it, all of us, all of us. And our children are telling me that they see now more than ever that here in America, anything is possible. They also tell me that I'm a role model, which I take both as an opportunity and as a huge responsibility. I am feeling up to the task primarily because I know that I am not alone. I am standing on the shoulders of my own role models, generations of Americans who never had anything close to this kind of opportunity, but who got up every day and went to work, believing in the promise of America, showing others through their determination and, yes, their perseverance, that good things can be done in this great country. From my grandparents on both sides, who had only a grade school education but instilled in my parents the importance of learning, to my parents, who went to racially segregated schools growing up and were the first in their families to have the chance to go to college. I am also ever buoyed by the leadership of generations past who helped to light the way: Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Justice Thurgood Marshall, and my personal heroine, Judge Constance Baker Motley. They and so many others did the heavy lifting that made this day possible. And for all of the talk of this historic nomination and now confirmation, I think of them as the true path breakers. I am just the very lucky first inheritor of the dream of liberty and justice for all. To be sure, I have worked hard to get to this point in my career, and I have now achieved something far beyond anything my grandparents could have possibly ever imagined. But no one does this on their own. The path was cleared for me so that I might rise to this occasion. And in the poetic words of Dr. Maya Angelou, I do so now while bringing the gifts my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. So as I take on this new role, I strongly believe that this is a moment in which all Americans can take great pride. We have come a long way toward perfecting our union. In my family, it took just one generation to go from segregation to the Supreme Court of the United States. And it is an honor, the honor of a lifetime, for me to have this chance to join the court, to promote the rule of law at the highest level, and to do my part to carry our shared project of democracy and equal justice under law forward into the future. Thank you again, Mr. President and members of the Senate, for this incredible honor.
Wow. Wow. Professor, a couple of things that stuck out for me, and I want to bring in Culture Crew member Shaquaya McKenzie on this part of the conversation. Shaquaya, of course, is an activist. She's an educator, and she is a dynamic role model in her own right for women across this country. But ladies, there are a couple of things that stuck out for me. One is she did not shy away from the role model title. And you know, sometimes I think, Professor, that, you know, when people get into this, they are like, oh, I'm just trying to do my thing. Not really. I mean, I get it. It's part of being humble, but at the same time, you know, not fully embracing that other people are looking at you, that you know that you are not just a person, but you represent something greater. Then the second thing that really stuck out for me is the acknowledgement by her being a Black woman, which I think has always been like a source of a huge part of this conversation about her. saying, look, my ancestors, segregation, I stand on the shoulders and I walk in the same, the path. And I mean, just embracing that part of herself, that her black part, that her blackness, not running away from that. And how do you think that is going to play out? Because there have been many conversations about both, her being a role model. What does that mean? What does she represent? And then by her blackness, because she's married to a white man, and she has a biracial child. These things don't matter to me, but I know that that's part of the conversation, and it's unfortunate that matters to some other folks.
That's a really big question. So let me try to take it in parts. Having the privilege of going to law school with Judge Jackson, I did have the privilege of seeing Patrick, and I can say he loves her dearly. He has been a great spouse and support. So anyone who is stuck on, oh, she's got an interracial marriage, needs to just get over it. That's not going to impact how she is as a judge at all. One of the things I've always valued and respected about Judge Jackson when we were in law school is that she always knew who she was. When I was last on this show, I gave you guys an analogy to a different world character, Kimberly Reese. And I told you, some people say I'm Whitley, she would be Kimberly Reese. And I really meant that. Kimberly Reese, when we think about the character, knew who she was. So does Ketanji Brown Jackson. She knows she's a Black woman. She knows the power in being a Black woman. She knows all the burdens and all that comes with it. And she has never run from that. And that's one of the reasons everyone should be really excited about this wonderful, wonderful moment. So when she goes into those rooms, she's taking all of herself with her, all of those life and lived experiences as a Black woman, as a public defender, as having members in law enforcement, as having a relative in prison. All of that is going into the room with her. And as she goes into the room, when she said, we're all in there, she didn't just break a glass for herself. That's another thing that I really love about Judge Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Most people who we respect in the Black community are very community oriented. That's kind of who we are. And so when she says we made it, she really meant that. In a sense, we all did, because we are finally all there represented. Now, does there need to be other representation on the Supreme Court? Absolutely. But part of the beauty of this is they see that Black people don't think in a monolithic way, because we have Clarence Thomas on one side who's going to probably think very differently than a Justice Jackson. And that's a good thing. Maybe not a good thing, everything that Clarence Thomas says, but a good thing that they know that, we're not just cookie cutter. We're actually living, thinking beings with opinions, and we know how to read the law and interpret it and all of that. And so that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you said that. Shaquaya, what's your take on that?
I also, like you, am kind of reeling and really allowing the cataclysmic concept of a Black woman on the Supreme bench to just marinate, because I had a moment yesterday as I was watching Senator Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, in his introduction to the vote, really poignantly expressing how much of a moment this is, that we're nominating a Black woman to the bench. And a part of me had a little bit of resistance, like, well, yeah, she's Black, but she's also so much more. Why do we keep talking about the fact that she's Black, right? But I understand why. I know why. I think a little bit of my resistance is just like, it's damn time. That's my attitude. But it's also allowing myself to marinate in it. And I really appreciate her reference to being the hope and the dream of a slave, because for my students who I taught, and I'm out of the classroom now, but oftentimes what I wanted to really bring to fore for students and allow them to grapple with is that we are only 3 or 4 generations away from slavery. I think oftentimes it's so easy for us to dismiss being present in time, what that means for the work we are doing, what that means for the history we are seeing, and really embedding into not just children of color, but all children, all American children, in the responsibility they inherit to celebrate these moments, to understand where we are in the context of time, and not feel as if that history, our history was so long ago. It's imminent, right? As she said, her grandparents were in grade school or just had a grade school education, and her parents grew up in segregation. And so I am trying to find the balance of celebrating this moment as I'm always looking forward to, okay, now what next? What else do we need to do? Who else do we need to put in position? And I appreciate your word, Professor, about allowing this to be a catalyst for us to think about. And Faraji, I think I mentioned to you, but I'm gearing up to prepare for law school myself now. I'll be a non-traditional student.
Oh, yes. You did mention that to me. Yep.
So this means the world to me in the most immediate sense of what it is I look to do. I recently had a conversation with a Black judge from New Jersey who said, you should think about this. And I never had before, right? And so I'm so grateful that this gives us an opportunity to think about pipeline, to think about the intentionality of the work that we can do in education, elementary through higher, right? Of how we essentially condition the minds of our children to know that they belong in these spaces. Faraji, the last thing I want to say too is that what's special about Judge Jackson is that she is such an exemplar of you can't throw stones. You know, she's such an exemplar of a judge and of a professional and everything she's done up until this point. But sometimes I think it's important for us to be mindful and say, you even still, you don't have to be perfect to want to aspire to where she is, right? She's a model. She's amazing. She has an unblemished record. And there are also people who may have some blemishes on their record that still deserve a seat at the table, regardless of anything. It's not just about our race. It's not just about our arc of excellence. It's about the fact that we deserve to be in these spaces. Our opinions need to inform the work that is at every level of, the judicial system. And I'm just so excited for what this means in the immediate term, and definitely for what this means for the children that I taught.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Professor. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to jump in. I was thinking about what Michelle Obama said after we had the last president before Biden. And she talked about, now we're going to see what it's like to live in a country without hope. And when we talked about apathy, that's what some of it does. I think so many of us are just beaten down by so much negativity. And now we have this wonderful shining light. When you talk about the children, I cannot wait for KBJ dolls on the show. You know what it's going to mean for our little girls to see dolls modeled out with Supreme Court justice? That is going to be so valuable.
And and you know what, Professor, when you say it like that, I mean, we know that the culture that the time that, for example, that Thurgood Marshall became a Supreme Court justice, I mean, we're like light years, we're like eons culturally from that time, right? The time that Clarence Thomas became a Supreme Court justice, eons from that time culturally. When the time that Sister Sonia Sotomayor became a Supreme Court justice, we're like eon, and even Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, culturally, we're in a very different space where we're having a Black woman in a seat of power such as this, and the implications, the ramifications, the ripple effect that it has from, I mean, yes, RBG, she had dolls, she had t-shirts, but that was in the latter years of her service, right? But we're talking about this thing kind of just blowing up. You seeing, Professor Judge Ketanji everywhere. She's going to be on billboards.
Popular judge we've had in years, more popular than Chief Justice Roberts statistically. I think she has like a 60% approval rate. There are many people who are excited about this.
Right. And I think that's the other part about this. I mean, we are in a very, very heavy opinionated period in our culture because of social media, because of alternative platforms and new platforms like this, that everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion about who should be doing what. everybody has an opinion about how they should be doing their job. And, you know, I always just kind of laugh, and I'm saying, you know what? For people in public service, it's a hard job. If you got a platform, it's a hard job. Because I would like to, for folks that aren't in public service, I like for some people to just start, you know, talking about what their jobs is and how their job performance is and all of that. They wouldn't be able to handle that level of scrutiny. They wouldn't be able to handle it. But to see, we're in a very different time. We're in a different space when it comes to women's rights, women's issues in this country, right? So this is, I mean, to have a Black woman in the seat of power, in the way that we're seeing it, the way that she was confirmed, the process that she was confirmed, I mean, the foolishness that she had to endure during the hearings is a very, very big deal. We want to take a quick pause. When we come back, Professor, I'd like to get your thoughts on what can we expect over the next couple of months as we prepare for her to take her seat in October. So we'll have that conversation. We'll continue to have our conversation with Culture Crew member Shaquaya McKenzie, and of course with you. We'll share some of your comments as we have this discussion. So stay with us, folks. Still a lot to talk about as we continue to celebrate the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson on the Supreme Court. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A Black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Hey, Black, I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?
We are continuing to talk about the historic moment of the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the United States Supreme Court. Today, there was a ceremony that was hosted by President Biden and Vice President Harris to congratulate Judge Jackson on the confirmation. And we've been talking with Professor Najari Mathis Rutledge, who is a law professor, and she was a classmate of Judge Jackson back in law school. She's also my columnist for USA Today, giving her insight and analysis of what we are seeing and expecting in this great historical moment. We're also joined by Culture crew member Shaquaya McKenzie, who is an aspiring law professional herself. She is an activist and she is an educator. Professor, as we look at what's going on with this situation, because this was a pretty fast confirmation hearing. Compared to what I've read of other Supreme Court justices. So this is March right now. No, April. I'm sorry. This is April right now. But talk to us about this timeline, because even though she has been confirmed yesterday, there's still some time before she actually takes the seat in the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. So yesterday, the full Senate voted that she should be confirmed. Today, President Joe Biden had her sign a constitutional oath of some type. Sadly, I wasn't there. I have a lot of friends and classmates that were there in person. I didn't see that. But we expect sometime in July, maybe the end of June, for her to actually take the official oath of office.
Okay.
We need to wait till Justice Breyer actually retires. He's announced his retirement, but he is still the current justice of the Supreme Court. Once that happens, she will be ready to be seated for the next term, for her to start listening to cases and any special things that come up.
And that next term starts October, I read?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So it's going to be at least 6 months, about 6 months before she actually sits on the seat. What happens during this time period? I was reading that she's trying to get her office together, hire some personnel. But are there some other things that we can expect to see?
I tell you what I'm hoping to see, and I shared this with some friends, some mutual friends who are much closer to her, and I said, I hope she takes time to rest. She was under substantial attack, and there were so many negative racist symbols sent to those QAnon folk that I just want her to be safe. I know she has a security detail. She's not allowed to drive anymore. But I just want her to take time, because those attacks and that negativity is not going to stop, because even though the politicians may have been engaged in political theater, some of their constituents are not. Some of them are going to take some of that nonsense and that rhetoric seriously. So I want her to rest up, because it's hard being the first. So for her own safety, for her own peace of mind, my goal would be for her to have self-care. Now, I expect for the next few weeks, she's going to wrap up the things that she has to do on the court. She could stay, but I think that would not be in the best interest of anyone. It's better to go ahead and start thinking about someone like perhaps Judge Childs, who is on the short list to fill that seat, even though the Republicans have already, they're in their feelings and they're saying they're not going to let any judges pass. But we're going to keep fighting for that as well. And then her to get ready for that transition. I don't believe she has the staff set up yet. I know I've had people reach out to me, personally, just saying, hey, do you think I can get her to talk to this? I'm like, that's not even set up yet. Let her breathe and rejoice in all of that right now.
It reminds me of the moment, Professor, when President Obama first got into office back in 2008. And then it was like a lot of Black people were like, hey, man, I can't wait to work for the president. And I'm like, wait a minute, what do you think? You think they could just post it on Indeed or something? like he got an opening for a staff member? Like there are protocols. I think there was a lot of, people were just so excited to have a Black face in the White House. It was just like, oh my gosh, we're going to have all of this access and everything. But for a role and position like this, what type of access do people, or will the people have to Judge Jackson?
So this is a very unique situation for a number of reasons. Unlike when Thurgood Marshall was on the Supreme Court, we have social media and we're in a different time. And because the court has become very politicized, we've seen current Supreme Court justices do a lot of speaking engagements and say a lot of things we're not used to the court saying. As the first Black woman, there are so many people who want to hear from her, to have her speak at this event and that event and that event. So she's going to have to pace herself. Traditionally, if you're already a judge, as she is a sitting appellate court judge, you take your law clerks with you, right? Because they're already working there. It's kind of the middle of the thing. And I'm sure they'll probably get the first dibs on the opportunity to go to the court. That's my assumption. After that, the regular law clerk process will happen. Those are going to be the people who actually get to work directly with her in her chambers. She's also going to need, that secretary and that personal secretary and figure out scheduling from that point. But in terms of access, I already know, for example, I teach at South Texas College of Law, Houston. I would love for her to speak. I think I can get her to speak because I've known her for a while. But her close circle, deans, other law professors, she's got people that are way up the food chain from me in terms of their relationship. She's going to go there first. And I respect that. So how is she going to make all the rounds? There were so many Black women law professors and deans that did a lot of grassroots organizing and wrote op-eds and gave speeches and interviews on her behalf. All of them want her to speak at places. I'm sure the people of Miami, we have not had someone from Miami, Florida. She's a daughter of Florida from the South, want her. So there's going to be a whole lot of different obligations that she's going to have to pick and choose. I have no idea how she's going to tackle it all.
And then with the president and vice president, how does that relationship work with her? I mean, because you're saying that this is really like, I mean, it's not unprecedented or uncharted territory because presidents appoint Supreme Court justice, but it is unprecedented, uncharted territory for a Black woman in 2022 in the cultural and political space that we're in. How do you foresee that relationship going between her and Vice President Harris and President Biden?
I believe the relationship between her and Vice President Harris is going to be very unique because they're both people who just broke that glass ceiling. And we've heard that Vice President Harris. Did you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
And we heard that she had a really large role in making this happen and even picking who was going to be on the short list and ultimately Judge Jackson. Having said that, judges should always avoid the appearance of impropriety. So I do not recall any times where you saw any of the Supreme Court justices hang out with any of the presidents. So I don't expect a bunch of different photo ops or anything like that. In fact, ideally, they're going to come to the State of the Union address and they should try to remain as apolitical as possible. It's really an interesting dichotomy because in many ways, to become a judge in the first place, you have to be political. But once you become a judge, you're really supposed to shut all of that off. So she's going to have to be very careful with her boundaries. So she can certainly be friends with Vice President Harris, and there's some wonderful, amazing women, Black women in the White House Counsel Office that really help make this happen as well. But there has to always be that line because she is a judge and she cannot let her ties or relationships influence her at all.
Big. Professor, I know you have to run, so we appreciate your time with us today. Very, very grateful that you were able to share your analysis and insight. And I'm going to call on you again, Professor.
I would love that. And I do need to clear one thing up. I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, and so is the vice president. Judge Jackson is unaffiliated. I know some people say she's a Delta. No, she's an AKA. Ketanji Brown Jackson studied. That's what she did in college. I was pledging. She was studying. She's still studying and focusing on her family. She is not affiliated with any organization.
Well, she might get some honorary affiliations at this point.
She better be like Michelle Obama and stay neutral because I know some of her besties are Deltas. And, I'm trying to block that. I'm like, wait.
Come on over, Oh, you don't know, Professor, I'm a Delta. So, the love is...
Hey, I'm going to find our sisters, but I'm like, no, Nina. No, get off of her.
It's going to get real.
Professor, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate you. And again, we'll tap back. We'll circle back to you because as we get closer to the next phase of this process, we want to get your thoughts on that. So thank you again.
Thank you and good luck in law school. Very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Najee Mathis Rutledge, who is a law professor. She is a dynamic former prosecutor as well as a columnist for USA Today, joining us as always here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. Shaquay, I want to get your thoughts.